Welcome, Friar fans, to another episode of the 247 Scout Friars podcast. I am Richard Corin, and I'm joined by my co host, Steve Hartnett. Stephen, how are you tonight?
Doing okay, Rich. Still kind of mulling over with the happenings at Mohegan Sun and playing the game of coulda, shoulda, woulda. But nevertheless, we're here and we'll break it all down.
We're going to break it down. And to break it down with us tonight is our guest, voice of the Friars, longtime voice of the Friars, 36 years, I believe.
This is 37. You've lost count.
37, John Rooke. Thank you for joining us tonight, John.
I can't believe that shot didn't go down at the end.
Yeah,
I
well,
keep I keep looking at it and I'm like, how did that not go down?
over the years, we've seen a lot of those kind of shots not go down at the end for us.
Yeah, but I mean that was ridiculous. Totally. I mean, I'm not sure that I've seen anything like that, And yeah, you're right. We've seen our fair share of shots that, have not gone, the way of the Friars like we would have wanted it to. But that one was down. It was through the hoop, and somehow miraculously came back out again. Hey, Mike Young, Virginia Tech's coach, even said that after the game, he said that shot was in. He said that shot was in. He said I still don't believe it came out,
Yeah,
and I kind of shared that with him.
yeah, yeah. Um, but getting to that point was interesting. And then what happened after that point was also interesting.
Well,
It's one of those games for Friar fans. Everyone knows they lost 107 to 101 in overtime to Virginia Tech on late Saturday afternoon at Mohegan Sun. Friars fall to 1-1 on the season with that loss. To me, it's a lost opportunity because it's obviously it's a potential resume building game. Virginia Tech not picked to finish high in the ACC, but if you watch them and they stay healthy, I think they're going to finish higher than people expect. Um, but you look at the non-conference schedule, games like Colorado and Penn State, at least on paper right now, I don't think they really move the needle that much. Losing this game to Virginia Tech, I think puts a lot of pressure on Providence to win, to beat Wisconsin and San Diego for a resume building win, and then get a shot at Florida. Even if they lose that, it's still a good game for the metrics. So
yeah,
to me, more than anything, this game was another lost opportunity for Providence in non-conference play.
it was. But let me say this. I think in this day and age, preseason predictions are absolutely ridiculous to pay any attention to
Agreed.
because of the way that rosters get shaken up and changed over from year to year. Virginia Tech does not look like the 12th place team in the ACC.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and if you watched any of the game at all, I would think even the most untrained eye could figure out, wow, that team's actually pretty good because they have the ingredient. They have all the ingredients that you need. You got outside scoring. You got inside scoring. You got an uncanny. You may have the best freshman in the country. Running the point guard in Mr. Neoklis Abdallas, and then I mean they've got some help off the bench. I mean they've got everything. I don't know that they have the depth that Providence has.
Right.
And to me, I think I'm still hopeful here. I mean, this is game two, so it's way too early to throw in the towel on anybody. But I would tell you that I was pleasantly surprised at the way that the Friars kept coming at him in waves. What I would really love to see now is that when you know that you need to get a stop or you need to continue coming at teams in waves. I'd love to see this team press more, especially when it gets down to crunch time because you've got so many different bodies that you can throw at teams. And I thought they did a good job with that against Holy Cross, and I thought there were some missed opportunities for that against Virginia Tech. Granted, Tech was doing some things that kind of took them out of that, but nevertheless, I'm you know I think we can all see where this team is lacking, and this team has got to figure out a way to, if not slow down, stop some teams at some point pretty soon. Otherwise, some of these non-conference opportunities that are still coming their way are going to pass them by without them scoring. That's what happened last year, and you certainly don't want to get 8 to 10 games deep into the season and have the same repeat happen this year.
Yeah. Steve, your thoughts on your high level overall thoughts on the contest yesterday?
I think you put it well when you said it was a lost opportunity. I mean, I think Virginia Tech will finish better than their record. I don't think anybody could anticipate that the freshman Greek point guard for them was going to be as phenomenal as he is. People compared him to Igor Denman from BYU, but honestly, he was more impressive than Denman was when BYU visited Providence by a long shot.
Agreed.
I mean, this kid could do it all,
He was
and a tremendous passer at that. But that said, Providence, they had like a lead at half by 6 points, and they had multiple chances in regulation to win the game.
Yep.
They did not seize it, and part of it is just bad luck, like Vaaks' shot not going down, and part of it is like, well, you put yourself in that position for a variety of reasons, and the main reason is you gave up 50% for the game from the field. I mean, when Kim English had this team rolling 2 years ago defensively, he said their standard was keeping a team below 30% or at 30%. Now we'd be happy if we kept teams at or under 40%.
Yeah.
I mean, if Providence keeps VCU at 39 or 40%, they probably win by 8 in regulation. But the defense isn't good enough. And particularly, they're getting behind early in games and at the beginning of the second half, which tells you that there's a problem with the starting unit. Either they can't kind of self-start, or there's a defensive lapse or something. And, I'm concerned about particularly Duncan Powell. He's not performing the way he's expected to, the way he up to the expectations of not only the coaching staff, but I think, the NIL donors and everything. And I'm not saying he can't improve and turn it around, but I feel like, they've got to take a hard look at whether he should be starting or coming off the bench.
Can't disagree with any of that. Can't disagree with any of it. I clearly believe that the guys that are out there on the floor to start the game are out there because of their experience. But at the same time, you've got to, when you have experience, you have to produce. And I think even those guys who are out there on the floor would agree with that assessment. That's something that they've done in the past, and they are expected to do now. You've got to put your best guys out on the floor at any given time. And I think we've seen that there are some, other potential players on this team that might be better suited defensively. So, and hopefully this is a situation that will work itself out here in fairly short order, because again, you don't have a whole lot of time to play here before you're going to miss out on other opportunities. And, I would agree this was definitely a missed opportunity. Virginia Tech is better than whatever 12th, in the ACC really means. If there are 11 teams better than Virginia Tech in the ACC, then they'll pull an SEC and put that many teams in the NCAA tournament next year. In March for sure. I'm not so sure that that's the case. So I'm real encouraged by the Friars on offense and their ability to spread it around. I think Stefan Vaaks, if Mr. Abdallas at Virginia Tech is the best freshman in the country that we may see all year, certainly going to be right up there amongst all of the names that are there, because he attended and did so well in the the NBA pre-draft camp this last year, and clearly he should have gone pro, but he wanted to go and probably make a year's worth of money in the college game now. And there's no doubt in my mind this kid will end up being first round, if not a lottery pick next year. But Stefan Vaaks is not far behind him, guys. He's just not. So I think that the Friars have their own weapon that they're going to have to figure out to utilize as best they can. If not in a starting role, when do they bring him in? Is he a liability defensively as opposed to what he can provide offensively? I mean, this is the stuff that's all going to have to play itself out. And I know we all get kind of frustrated, about hoping, well, why doesn't it happen now? Why does it have to happen later? And I'm just not sure that something like that can solve itself in just a matter of a game or even two. So rest assured, I think Kim and his staff understand that hey, we know the chances are here, and we've got to figure out a way to turn this around quickly enough to where they can at least get a couple of stops if they can't play better team defense. I mean, look, hey, fact of the matter is that if they don't, then we'll be talking about completely different things in another month or two.
Yeah, we talked to obviously everybody right now, us, fans on message boards, people in the stands, everyone's talking about the defense, right? I mean, they gave up 86 points in regulation. They're giving up 50% shooting percentage, 107 points overall, 46 points in the second half. We're
Yeah.
52 points by Holy Cross in the second half, 50 by Harvard in the second. This is an ongoing theme. And I said it before, and I'll repeat. I think this roster was built for offense, not for defense.
Well, that's you bring up a great point, and I agree. And you were talking about how a couple of years ago had Kim, metrically had a solid defense. His first year in the game in just 2 years' time, Rich really has changed. Steve, I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts on this as too, but I mean the way that the metrics have changed the game, it's forced coaches to, I think differently about the way they structure their rosters and put themselves together. Now, you could say, well, look at a guy like Shaka Smart at Marquette. He hasn't dipped into the portal at all, and he still manages to maintain. And the reason he has is because he's been consistent. And I think this is the one thing that's kind of hurt, Providence. They figured out a way where they really needed to improve on the offensive end, but the problem is when they improved on offense, the defense didn't come along with it. And if you look at the metrics over the last 3 years, the Friar defensive metrics have gotten worse progressively every year. So that's something that has to pull up and change immediately. If it doesn't, then that's going to end up being a drag, I think, on the overall metric for this team and potentially hurt them being in the first net rankings when they come out, because I've already seen in KenPom, and I know what people generally think of KenPom, not a lot, but that's the only real metric that you have this early stage of the season. The Friars started out 48th in KenPom. They're already down to 70th and falling, regardless of the ability to score 100 points or more in a game.
Right.
What does that say?
Yeah, and you look at the roster, and you look at the players on the roster, and you ask yourself, can these players improve? Can the defense improve? I think it can, because there is this thing called coaching and teaching. But defense and rebounding as well are all about want. And I think it really is going to come down to, do the players want to put in the work to be gritty and physical and get those defensive stops that they need to beat good teams? That remains to be seen.
Yeah. Now, to their credit, they rebounded pretty well against Virginia Tech. We thought they were going to be at a big disadvantage in that area. They actually out rebounded them by one.
Yep.
So I will give credit where credit's due there.
Yes.
Getting back to Vaaks and the starting lineup, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would say, oh, well, you could start Vaaks and not Corey Floyd. The problem with that, even though it may be tempting, is that even though Floyd hasn't been really scoring, he has been he is a pretty good defender. He rebounds, he forces some turnovers, and he brings some toughness. If you substituted him with Vaaks, yes, you would add another scorer, but there's only one ball, and with Edwards out there, Sellers out there, you've kind of got like an overheated offense and not enough touches for anybody. And
Yep.
you want to bring in that punch off the bench. So
Yeah.
I'm okay leaving Floyd in the starting lineup, even though he hasn't been scoring, because
Yep.
their biggest problem is defense.
Agreed.
And so they need him on the floor.
Yep.
Powell is the guy I would substitute out because he's not really producing really that much in any area. I think he's made 1-3 on the year. He's
That's
not
correct.
really doing much as far as a post scorer. He's not rebounding high. And Jameer Jones basically is averaging the same amount of rebounds and more points in 5 minutes less of time.
So would you put Jameer in his place?
And I would put Jameer in. That I think would help the running game early in the game. They may not get down so quickly. Then bring Powell in later, with other subs like Mela and Hargrove or what have you. I just think that the slow starts and the evaporation of halftime leads demands that you look at that starting lineup. And so I'd give Jameer Jones a chance. I mean, I don't think he's going to do any worse than Powell's done in the starting lineup. And that may ruffle Powell's feathers, but maybe that's a shot in the arm he needs to show that he's got to give a better compete level than he has.
I think the point that you make about Corey Floyd is a legitimate one. Certainly his defense and his rebounding beg for him to be on the floor on this particular team. The problem, I think, is the fact that he's been thrust into this role as the primary ball handler and point guard, and he really isn't a point guard. And you look at this team and they really lack in that spot. Now you can say, and there are people out there who are saying the game has evolved to where you don't really need a traditional point guard anymore. There's a lot of guys on this roster that can handle the ball, that can pass the ball. But I would counter that by saying they scored 101 points yesterday and only recorded 10 assists. And there were times in a game, and it happened yesterday down the stretch in the second half, where you need a steadying hand in a possession, and a true point guard would help bring that. And that's something Providence doesn't really have right now. And I think it's a shame that this team really doesn't have that on the roster. That is a little bit of a roster construction issue.
I'm not sure there's anything that can fix that. Daquan Davis is the closest thing to a point guard, and I don't know that he's scored a point yet this season. So
he hasn't.
So that tells you that he's not quite ready for prime time.
Yeah, I mean, 10 assists in a game where a team scores 101 points. It's one-on-one basketball. There's not a lot of movement or passing that is facilitating scores. It's players kind of taking it on themselves. If you take a look, if you think about the game in specifically yesterday, Providence was up 86-84 with the ball with about 45 seconds left in regulation. Edwards gets the ball. Virginia Tech blows up the screen, and Edwards was lost. He really didn't know what to do with the ball. In an ideal situation, you either call a timeout when you see a play breaking down in that situation, especially as such a key possession, or Edwards knows to give the ball up to a facilitator and then maybe get the ball back. Instead, you end up with a desperation three that doesn't go in. Virginia Tech goes down, scores, and ties the game. Key moment in the game with a breakdown, because there really isn't anybody running offense out there for you on the floor.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a legit point. I just don't know how to fix that. Other than having more set plays, and more timely timeouts. But I'm gonna put that problem aside for the moment because the defensive problem is so much bigger. of an
Agreed.
issue. And
Agreed.
if they could fix the defensive problem, the lack of a point guard problem is mitigated.
Well, they have to fix the defensive problem because what's going to happen is you're going to run into teams that are going to play defense and D up against you.
Mm-hmm.
Defense travels, offense doesn't. So there's going to be games where you are as offensively potent as this team is. There are going to be games where they are going to have issues and go through stretches with trouble scoring, and those are the games you're going to lose because you're not going to be able to outscore opponents if you can't stop them defensively.
BYU beat Holy Cross by 45.
Yes.
Okay. Providence beat them by 10. Probably should have beat them by 20. Now, BYU's a better team than Providence. They're a top 10 team. But it just goes to show how far the Providence defense has to go. They're making everybody look like, the Hank Gathers Loyola Marymount team, or something like that, like just bombs away three. They're making everybody look like great 3-point shooters.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So Virginia Tech hit 12 out of 28 threes, 43% for the game. We know from talking to the Virginia Tech beat writer in our last podcast before the game, not a great shooting team. That was their weakness. They were not a great shooting team.
And they made one more than Providence did.
Yeah.
That's all they needed.
Right.
That's all we needed. And I think part of the problem that you guys have touched on very well here is the fact that the Providence defense has allowed teams to feel comfortable. And the way that you make teams uncomfortable is by applying constant and consistent pressure. And we've seen, at least through, the times that they've done it, that seems to be, the ticket to some kind of success. And yet, when you go 10, 11, 12 deep as Kim purports to go, then why, and you've got a minutes problem here. Put these guys in the game and let them press the hell out of it. And I don't know why they called off the Dogs. I really don't. For whatever reason, maybe they felt like they were shredding it. And if they were shredding it, and they did do that some, and beat it relatively easy, then you gotta figure out a way to keep that from happening. I mean, that's called an in-game adjustment. And the problem is that the adjustments aren't happening when the adjustments need to be made. I mean, this team is giving up now 98 points in 2 second halves of the regular season. I didn't even count the 50 that they gave up to Harvard in the exhibition game. They gave up 52 in the second half to Holy Cross, 46 more than to Virginia Tech, and of course they gave up 21 in a 5-minute overtime. Which is just, seriously?
Yeah, that's eye-opening. Eye-opening.
How do you explain that?
Yeah. The other problem is that too much is being asked of Oswin. He had a great game on Saturday. He had
11 points,
11 rebounds, 4 blocks.
Yeah.
He probably altered a bunch of other shots.
Yeah.
And again, Providence out-rebounded him by 1.
Yeah.
He had 2 steals. He really busted his backside. And, Kim had to take him out in the overtime because I think he was gassed.
He was. He was
killing himself out there. He's not getting enough help from Mr. Powell and others. Now, there was better overall team rebounding, but he's just asked to move mountains out there against a taller front court. And Hargrove is another guy who I think has not done enough for what this team needs. Oswin's kind of on an island in the front court. He's not getting a lot of support.
Yep.
Yeah, Hargrove averaged 9.9 points a game last year at Drexel, obviously against a lower level of competition. He's been no offensive threat at all in any of the games here at Providence, which is a little bit of a disappointment because what I saw of him on film, I thought his game would translate on offensive rebound putbacks, on close in shot. It just hasn't happened for him. Now, Providence doesn't play an offense where they dump the ball into the post, but even on garbage plays, I expected a little bit more out of Hargrove. As far as Powell goes, and we've talked about him a little bit, um, if you look at his game really is shooting the three. He never was a post-up player at any of his other stops. There was a possession in the game yesterday where he dribble, trying to back down the Virginia Tech player and kind of throw up an ugly shot that missed. And there was another play like that against Holy Cross where he tried to back a guy down and left the ball short. That's not his game. You're not going to get a lot of that from Hargrove. If he's not hitting his threes, he's not giving you a lot out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's shooting a little under 17% from the field. It's just not good enough. Okay. It's not working out right now for him. He needs to fix it, get his head straight. I don't know what he needs to do, but believe me, the cold first half starts and the evaporation of halftime leads starts with the disappointment of Duncan Powell.
It's a pretty strong take there, Steve.
Well,
but you know what? The proof is in the pudding, and the numbers don't lie. And he's a better player than what he has shown.
Yeah, he is. That's what I'm saying. He can do better. I'm not giving up on him.
Right.
I'm trying to light a fire under him to tell him he needs to do more, and he needs to be sent a message that, if you don't, regardless of how you got here and what your NIL deal is, if you don't perform up to the standards that we expect of you, we have other good players we can put in. I mean, Kim English needs to win games. Providence cannot afford to lose to St. Bonaventure or Penn on Tuesday night or some other team. They got to win games.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and losing to Virginia Tech isn't the end of the world, but it was in front of a Providence crowd down the road at Mohegan Sun in a non-conference schedule that isn't full of heavyweights, and they frankly should have won the game, and they blew it. So, now they got to make up for it, and I think they need to make a tweak to the starting five.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen some people call for Stefan Vaaks to do a little bit more in the way of ball handling and facilitating. My only question there is, having now seen him play in 3 games, his instinct is to shoot the ball, right? He touches the ball, it goes up.
He's much better off the ball, guys. He's just much better off the ball.
I agree.
I mean, I know that he probably had to do, at least a limited amount of ball handling, playing in his Euro League. But at the same time, I think we can see that the game here is obviously going to be much faster than anything that he's ever experienced. So it's just a different world out there. We need. I think what this team needs, and I can't disagree with anything that you said at all, Steve. I'm glad you said that. It's probably better that you did say that. But I would also tell you that what we've seen, and Rich, you talked about how you'd seen even how some players have played Cole Hargrove. I looked at a lot of video of Duncan Powell when he first came to when was it from Georgia Tech a year ago when they were first talking about bringing him in. And I'm like, hey, this guy's got a pretty good game, and we just haven't seen it, to the 3-point strike, because clearly, when you're able to connect from 3, then teams have to come out and get you, and then that's where his inside presence can help him, because he's got a big enough frame, a big enough body to be able to do some damage with that, and I think this is where Steve kind of hit the nail on the head. absent Duncan Powell and the ability to make defensive honest, you got to find somebody that can get into the lane and create some opportunity for themselves. And there's nobody better at that on this team than Jameer Jones. Nobody. So I would have to concur. If I was the one, calling the shots, I would probably have to say, well, let's try Jameer and let's see what else we can do. Now, here's the downside to that. Not as much overall size, certainly not as much experience.
Yeah.
And you may be asking Jameer to be doing something that, he's a good player, but is he a rebounder? He's a great athlete. Is he a rebounder? And that this is what they need. So they've got to figure out, amongst the players they have on this roster. And Rich, you kind of brought up to it, the way the roster is constructed. I'm not sure, even though they certainly improved themselves, metrically speaking on the offensive end, I'm not sure they really improved themselves in two of the areas that they really needed to improve themselves in. Right. One of them in ball handling. And I'll go back to, the whole, Jaden Pierre, left for TCU thing on that one. At least, we could somewhat, I think rely upon Jaden to be able to distribute the ball. I don't know that this team has that, number one. And number two, we know they don't have the defense right now. And so because of that, and if these guys are actually, too worried about getting out on the break and, and scoring off the break and doing this, hell, I'd press. And then I'd settle in. I'd try to figure out a way to, throw some zone at some people from time to time. Because if you've got length out there, at the very least, you can cut off the passing lanes. And we noticed this in the first half against Virginia Tech. There's a reason why. Abdallah's only had one assist in the first half. He scored 17 points. Mm-hmm. But he only had one assist in the first half. Why is that? Because the Friars were overplaying the passing lanes. And he didn't have guys that, because he's not a dribble penetrator.
Right.
He's a pass first mentality. And so there was no lane for him to pass to. So what did they do? They forced him to score. And guess what? He did. He didn't have to do that in their opener against Charleston Southern, which is the only other time you had tape on him other than what you saw him playing, in Greece. Yeah. So you did what you wanted to do, but the kid responded by scoring with the ball, which you really didn't expect him to do. So you've got to figure out another option here in terms of being able to throw something at you that they're not expecting. It's, like the old baseball analogy. You throw a fastball. Eventually, the guys are just going to sit back and they're going to whack it. You got to throw a cutter. You got to throw a curveball. You got to throw, a changeup every once in a while to keep teams off balance. And I think this Providence team defensively can do that. They haven't done it yet.
I don't think they'll play a point guard as dangerous as Abdallah's the rest of the year, honestly, with his size, ability to pass and score. I mean, he's a pro.
He's an NBA player right now.
He's an NBA player. Yeah. So, I mean, I just kind of tossed that off to the side, whatever. But, other than that, the next two best players on the court, though, were probably Edwards and Sellers. I mean, those guys put up big numbers as well. So
we should mention Jaylin Sellers, because clearly,
he really stepped up. I had been calling for that. I said he needs to do more. Yeah. This guy's been too quiet, too much in the background. He's got to step up and be a leader and show the way, and he did. So
he's shaking off the rust. He hasn't played for a while. He's shaking off the rust. And it was shook off
yesterday. All of last year before he got hurt. Right.
He played really well. Edward, he scored 26. Edwards scored 28. Jason Edwards is an interesting case because you take the good with the bad with him. There are some possessions where you pull your hair out with the shot selection, but then, he'll score on drives to the basket and in the middle of traffic and everything, and you love that. So, again, you sort of take the good with the bad, and there are some wasted possessions there, but that's the nature of Jason Edwards' game.
Yeah, and he was 10 for 19. I mean, 28 points. I mean, look, they need a guy like that. So, but he's a gunner, and so is Vaaks. So it doesn't make sense to really have them on the board at the same time. When Edwards is out, you put Vaaks in, and you always have a gunner out there.
Right. With Abdallah, it's interesting because in their two exhibition games and then their game against Charleston Southern, he did not shoot the ball well in any of those three games. He was 3 for 13 against Charleston Southern and then just exploded against Providence yesterday. We had the bad luck to catch him on his breakout game.
Yeah.
I hope that he just, was in the zone in that game. I'm hoping that his breakout game was just not a pure product of porous Providence defense.
I think there was some of that as well.
We'll see. We'll see how he does the rest of the year.
Time is going to tell, right?
I was going to
Time,
tell.
time
Now,
is
as
going to
far
tell.
as Jameer Jones to the starting lineup, let me throw another name at you because I agree with John. It may be a lot to throw on his shoulders. We don't know if he's really the rebounder. Um, Certainly lack of experience. What's your thoughts on Ryan Mela in the starting lineup? 6 rebounds
I,
yesterday.
I think that would actually be the wise choice to make over Jameer Jones because he may be the best go-to rebounder you have on the team. He may be the best one you got. I think that's part of the reason why he got in as early as he did against Tech because Kim needed somebody early to rebound, and because early in the game, you remember they were getting slaughtered on the backboards, and they ended up evening it out where they actually had a slight lead at the end, but early on, Ryan's presence kind of stanched that bleeding. And so to me, I think he's the one that would be the obvious option there. Now, that being said, we haven't seen really any sign of his outside shooting prowess. We've been told that it's improved from a year ago. We haven't seen it. And so, if you're going to be a one-dimensional player, I think it's kind of like, well, we want you in there when we know, we need you to do your one thing, and then you're going to rotate out. And the only way he's going to get more time, more meaningful time, is he's got to become an option, as a scoring option for this team. I mean, if this team is going to be, an offense first mentality, then you got to make sure the offensive guys are on the floor to give you a chance to win a game.
But can you
I,
afford to have a guy like Mila who isn't a great outside shooter? Can you afford to have him out there when you've got so many other offensive options? Maybe he's the guy that isn't such an offensive option, but he gives you the rebounding. Now, I know plus athletes give him problems on defense, but he's solid defensively enough. You know, maybe maybe you sacrifice that with him for the other things that he does give you because you're getting that elsewhere.
he
Yeah,
primarily gives you rebounding.
yeah.
That's the constant you get with Mela. And he was an effective scorer last year, but Providence played a much more deliberate pace last year. I find he's struggling with the fast pace of the game. He makes good decisions, but he thrives in a slower half court set. Even last year when he was successful, people were like, he's never rushed. He when he takes it to the basket, it's not like he has to like beat you with speed, even though he had kind of a quick first step. He he kind of was very controlled in his movements. And the way Providence plays with their pace and early in the shot clock and everything, he's just not getting a lot of touches. So and he's not making threes still. So uh, um, if you're not going to get much scoring from him, and you're only getting the rebounding, and I'm not, and I don't know that he's a better defender than Jameer Jones. I'm not sure about that. And I think Jones in this offense can possibly score more than Mela.
But what I like about Mila too, that we didn't mention, is he does have the ability to get into the lane and pass the ball. He's got very good court vision and good passing ability, which this team needs.
Yeah. So I'm not saying I'm against Mela starting. I'm primarily saying that Powell needs to sit. Whether Kim chooses Mela or Jameer Jones, I'm fine with either. But uh, the defense needs to improve. So, I would start with that being the priority. Whatever the staff feels is going to improve the defense the best. That's what I'd go with.
I think Mila could be a point forward. I think he could do it. I think, is he going to be, perfect? No, but I think he could be that option without the pure point guard in that lineup. He could be the guy that could sort of facilitate like that and hopefully, find guys like, Edwards and in Vaaks when he's in the game, and and whoever's but he could be that kind of person. So I would tend to probably opt for Mela over Jameer Jones, just from the sheer rebounding aspect of it. And Jameer comes in along with Stefan Vaaks, and we saw that the energy that those two guys brought off the bench when things were getting stagnant early against Holy Cross. I love that aspect. It's like a bolt of lightning, and I think that's an effective way to play the game without a perfect starting five on the floor.
John, your point of view, being on courtside and watching the game closely yesterday. At the end of the game, Jaylin Sellers driving with the ball. Tim calls the timeout. Your thoughts on that sequence?
It looked to me like, it looked to me like he was potentially headed for a train wreck.
When I watched it again, when I looked at it in review, I thought the same thing. He was heading
Yeah,
two or three guys and a little out of control.
yeah. So I didn't really mind the timeout in that case. Joe and I were both in agreement on that one. And Joe's quick to like, oh, wish he hadn't done that, but no, we didn't do that. We were both kind of like, hey, you know what, that's a pretty good call because it looked like he could have potentially been out of control.
Yeah.
And listen, this way you call the timeout and you set up an opportunity. I'm only mildly surprised that it went to Vaaks. And I thought maybe they would try to run a play for Edwards, but hey, as we saw, he's as good as option as any, and that ball was out. I mean, it was down, it was through, and somehow it found its way out again. It's just one of those, inexplicable things that just happens from time to time in the game.
I mean, I didn't really have a problem with it going to Vaaks. I mean, I'm sure English felt, look, Virginia Tech's going to do everything they can to let anybody beat them but Edwards.
Yeah.
In that situation. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
And they had the size to kind of get in his face and deny him the ball. So
yep. True.
I'm actually okay that Vaaks took the shot.
Yep. Yeah.
And it should have went down. It's just bad luck there.
Edwards Edwards did get blocked inside a couple of times late in the game or in overtime, and they may have wanted to stay away with that. It's always interesting though when you're down, you're in a tie game, and you set up a final play with 4 seconds left. That's a 3-point attempt, as opposed to a play trying to get to the basket where you may get inside for a shorter shot or fouled, and a free throw wins the game for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. The strategy I think was fine. The timeout was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, there were the decision making, the play calling. Honestly, no issues. It's all on the execution right now with these guys, and they're executing well enough on offense. They're not getting the production they need out of one or two of those individuals, as we've already discussed. The entire roster needs to figure out a way to play better defensively, and that includes the coaching staff. That has to be the priority for this team now, because they're not going to be able to, allow teams to score 80, 90 points a game and have a prayer of being competitive when the games start to grind on you after the 1st of January.
Yeah, I mean, you get into the Big East, and teams don't let you run the way you want to run. So I suspect the pace will slow once those games begin.
Right. Correct.
And when you make a basket like they did near the end of regulation, when they were up 2, they gave it back on the other side. I mean, I think there was an initial shot that Oswin may have blocked, and then what was it? Someone didn't box out. The Virginia Tech guy came in and just cleaned it up and put it back in, tied the game. So, that's where you need your defense. You've got to get the stop.
Yeah.
Those were the types of end of game situations that Providence won when Cooley was here. That's one area that he excelled at, was the end of game situation. They always had a set play to get a key basket, and they could get the key stop. And I think at times Providence can get the key basket, but they have not yet proven that they can get a key stop.
Yeah.
Not yet.
So a key week coming up for the Friars. Providence takes on Penn at the AMP at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, and then later in the week they travel out to Boulder to take on Colorado. Thoughts on the importance of these games? Obviously, these are Providence has to win both games this week.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there's any argument there. You got to win. You got to win at home, and you can't allow a team like Penn, for what it's worth, to stick around and have a chance to beat you at the end. And then you got to go on the road and you got to prove that, regardless of where Colorado's picked to the Big 12, and I think their preseason pick for last in the Big 12. You got to go out there and you got to go on the road. You're going to go in a hostile environment. You're going to play on a Friday night before a Saturday football game. So I'm sure that it'll be a good crowd inside that building, because they'll all be there for football the next day.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out a way to win. You've got to there's really no two ways about it. You've got to win both games. And is it too early in the season to say must win? I hate using that phrase. But at the same time, if you don't win these two games, you have just about eliminated any sort of chance of helping yourself out when it comes to your resume, unless, of course, you can, run through the Big East somehow. I don't know, 16-4, and I don't think that's going to happen either.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to talk about that again, so I'm going to try to stay positive here.
One game at a time.
And I think they will take care of Penn. Although Penn apparently they have Steve Donahue now, is that correct? As their coach, they apparently want to play fast and go up and down. So
should play in Providence's hands.
Providence shouldn't have a problem with that.
Shouldn't.
I mean,
again, we'll see how their defense is. But and then Colorado, they're picked last in the Big 12, but it's still a Big 12 team, and you're on the road. So I don't want to hear like, oh, we lost because of the thin air or what have you. I mean, no excuses. They got to win the game. They have the depth. They got to win the game.
Well, like John said earlier, I don't trust any of these preseason rankings because they all come before people actually have a chance to see the teams play. Yeah. And all of these teams are dramatically rebuilt in this NIL era in portal era from the year before. So they may be picked last in the Big 12. That doesn't mean that they're going to really be the last place team in the Big 12. You don't know till you get on the court against them.
That's correct. That's correct. I think there's nothing more ridiculous than preseason polls. They exist to get people talking. But to use it as an actual barometer of a team's worth, that's dumb. Dumb.
John, I know you're close to the team and probably talk to folks after the game. The general mood of the team after that kind of heartbreaking loss yesterday.
Exactly what you just said. Heartbreaking, it was kind of like, wow, that just shouldn't have happened. And there, I think several of the players and the coaches kind of took it upon themselves. And I'm sure they've spent most of today trying to, put that ghost behind them, because you don't want a loss to beat you more than once. So that's the issue that you have. And of course, the coaching staff will stay up and stay positive on that over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours before they play again. And hopefully that they can, make some tweaks, figure out a way to, as Steve has mentioned a couple of times, they've got to figure out a way to improve defensively. That's the bottom line. You got to get stops. If you can't stop somebody, if you turn somebody into an offensive juggernaut, then they have every right to kind of continue rolling like you do. And that's what I kind of saw with Virginia Tech. The problem with playing, so many possessions, which is something that Kim has said that he wants to do. And I think that's a great way to play. I love playing. Would love to have played that way as a player myself years ago. But the issue with that is that you create more possessions for the other team. Mm-hmm. And when you're not doing what you can on the ball defensively to stop the other team, they're going to score just like you were scoring.
Right.
So there's got to be better attention to on the ball defensive pressure. And one of the ways that you disrupt that is by playing, full court pressure and making them work, 8 to 10 seconds in the backcourt before the ball crosses the timeline and gets into the forecourt. And then the shot clock's, already down to, 15, 16 seconds, and a team can't get into its offensive rhythm. So to me, that's how you speed teams up and how you can be effective. I really thought the Friars lost the game to Virginia Tech because we saw signs early in that game in the first half where they were wearing them down. I mean, Abdallah was gassed.
They looked tired.
He was gassed.
Yep.
And I thought now's the time to step on the jugular, even if it was, 3/4 of the way through the first half. Never did it.
Right.
Never did it. I want to see them step on the jugular and just start, throwing the full court press at people when you clearly have teams bothered and gassed early. That's what you need to do. I think that would be one way to be disruptive defensively, and it would mitigate some of the lack of on-the-ball pressure that we've seen.
Great point.
Especially because you got Osman in the back as a shot blocker if
yes.
they beat it.
Yep.
And the other thing is I'm okay with them playing fast. And if they're playing fast and they get a shot at the rim, I'm okay with that. But what I don't like to do is to come down and just launch a three with a guy there 3 seconds into the shot clock. That's giving the other team a complete break from having to play any defense whatsoever.
Correct.
You don't wear them down at all. You're not wearing them down by shooting it 3 seconds into the shot clock. You're just giving the ball back to them, back on offense, so they can score more on you. Unless you make those shots. Chances are you're not going to make those shots, though. So
that's part of what we saw and what we've seen with the problem with Duncan Powell. He's shooting way too early.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he doesn't have the percentages to back it up.
Yep. Edwards and Vaaks also are guilty of really quick triggers as well.
They are, but their percentages are much higher. So
they are.
To some degree you live with it. But it would be prudent to have conversations with them to be mindful of the shot clock. That you're every time you elect to chuck that shot right away as soon as you bring up the ball, you are giving the opposing defense a free pass to not exert any energy on defense.
Right. Let's close with kind of a sad note and some news that came to us right before we went live, and that's that Friar great and 3-time Basketball Hall of Famer Lenny Wilkens passed away today at the age of 88 in his hometown. That has made his hometown of Seattle. Lenny Wilkens, one of the first great Friars, 15-year career as a NBA pro, really kind of a unique individual. He was named as one of the 75 greatest players in NBA history, and also named as one of the 15 greatest coaches in NBA history. Just a career that unparalleled. You don't see that kind of those kind of honors come along very often. So
he was a guy, Rich, that I think all Friar fans can certainly take a good amount of pride in having him come from your institution, that you support yourself. He always spoke fondly of, the good fathers that taught him back in the day, of how he got recruited to Providence College, and what, Joe Mulaney and so many did for him in giving him an opportunity as a young boy, growing up in Brooklyn, as it was. And one of my great basketball thrills was when I got a chance to meet him several years ago after I had started at Providence. And I remember his days as a player. I'm old enough to remember that. Certainly as a significant coach. Obviously, my broadcast partner played for Lenny in Seattle. So, it's sad, but I take an immense amount of pride in knowing that Lenny Wilkens was a Friar and always will be a Friar for most people, certainly outside of the area of the immediate area of Seattle, of course, because he meant everything to basketball in the Pacific Northwest as well because of that 1979 championship that he had there. But, as a coach, as a player and everything, and Lenny is, as you suggested, Rich, he has the unique history of, having been inducted for three separate areas in basketball, in the Hall of Fame in Springfield, and I think he's one of five men to have that unique honor.
He's really the godfather of Providence basketball.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way
The
to put it.
founding father of Friar greatness, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
The epitome of class, smart, well spoken, thoughtful, generous of spirit, beloved everywhere. I mean, the term venerable seems appropriate for a guy like that. I mean, if the NBA had canonized people as saints, Lenny Wilkens would be one of them. I mean, this guy is a giant in college basketball, and certainly on the Mount Rushmore of Providence College.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
he belongs right up there. I guess, let's see, we got to put Dave Gavitt up there, probably Joe Mulaney up there, Lenny Wilkens would be up there. Who's your fourth?
Jimmy Walker. And
I think I can make a case for Ernie D.
Ernie D. Yep. I'll also point out that Lenny's jersey was the first ever to be honored by Providence College up in the rafters all the way back in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
So Providence is recognized. It was a life well lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Lenny Wilkens. Just an absolute all-time great. Will never be forgotten in Friar annals.
Yep, agreed.
No, well said.
All right, John Rooke, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Always appreciate having your insight, and nobody has the view that you have during the games.
Well, sometimes the view that I have is looking right at the coach's butt. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that one. I have
like I said, nobody has the view that you have.
I don't know how much basketball I get a chance to see sometimes, but yeah, unfortunately, I saw all that I needed to see on Saturday, and that was when Stefan Vaaks' shot, I mean, literally went through the hoop and came back out again. Yeah. I'm going to be shaking my head over that one, I think, for a while.
Well, it's early. It's early in the season, 2 games in. So let's hope better times ahead.
Indeed.
So thank you, John.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Steve, you and I will speak again right after the Penn game.
Yes. Hopefully with some more good things to say.
Absolutely. As always, Friar fans, go Friars.